of you know Vicki, who works with Ruth Sanel, but she's the one who came up when I came into the room a moment ago. It was all dark and nothing was set up, and I said, oh, and Vicki showed up and got everything ready to go, and so it's with some wonderful people that help us here at Westminster. Well, I show that we are right at 7 o'clock, so let me first just thank all of you for being here. And one of the regrets I have is that the lady who prepared these remarks is not going to be here to deliver them, because she was a very good researcher. And I mentioned it to a group that was a little bit earlier, but just those of you, and several people have indicated that we have a few people who are twins who live here at Westminster, and we have a few people who've had twins. And the most recent study that I found is one in a book that was published in 2012, and I'll give the title of it. It's called Born Together, Reared Apart, and it's a study by the University of Minnesota Medical School, and a lady named Nancy Siegel is the author of it. But it's Born Together, Reared Apart, for any of you that might want to read a lot in depth. I've got a book ordered, and it's a used book coming from somewhere, I don't remember, but there were a few copies that were available. But these are remarks that Jean Alice prepared for a group of university women called Open Forum a few years ago, and that was the occasion for her giving them. And so let me share the remarks that she prepared, and afterward I can answer a few questions, but maybe not too many. But she started off by pointing out, in the summer of 1994, our son and daughter-in-law called from the office of the obstetrician where they had gone for Molly's pregnancy checkup. They were expecting to see the baby's 12-week sonogram. Quite soon they called to say that they would be over immediately to show us the sonogram. And there on the TV screen was the black and white image of two softly moving figures, and in block letters above the image we could read, "Hi, Mom and Dad, there are two of us." And of course we all celebrated. And months later, we celebrated again when the identical baby girls were born prematurely by 6 weeks, but a natural birth, weighing in at 4 pounds 9 ounces and 4 pounds 11 ounces. Hattie and Mary Alice Sherman. Because the babies were underweight, they were kept in the neonatal unit of Seton Hospital for the first 10 days of their lives. That was a godsend, because all of us, parents and grandparents, took turns at the hospital, 2 at a time, to help feed the babies every 3 hours until their parents brought them home from the hospital Christmas Eve, 1994. We all felt the neonatal gave us an exceptional opportunity to learn how to care for these little ones, and gave us a comfort level in handling them as well. Then when these twins were 6 years old, and in the spring of their kindergarten year, our son and daughter-in-law were back again at the obstetrician's office for another sonogram. My husband Max and I were finishing breakfast, reading the morning paper at home, when the telephone rang. Max answered. The call was from our son Lynn. He said, Dad, you won't believe this. The sonogram reads, "Hi, Mom and Dad, there are two of us." And so we celebrated again, but a bit more tentatively. And I should add a little hypothetical that's not in here. They had given away all of their stuff because you're never going to have a second set of twins, so they were starting from scratch again. None of us had ever expected the first set of twins, much less the second. In due time, and only 4 weeks early this time, another set of identical girls was born, weighing in at 5 pounds, 10 ounces, and 6 pounds, 1 ounce. Hazy and Clara Sherman. Since each one was more than a pound heavier than the older sisters, these babies were strong enough to go home after 2 days in the hospital. When people ask me, as they often do, what are the odds of 2 sets of identical twins in one family? I give the answer that the doctor gave Molly, their mother, when she asked that question. He said, well, who can say for sure, but probably it's 1 in 4 million. Not often. There's another lesson that I have a fascination, another reason I have a fascination with twins. I wish that I could show you a photograph of myself when I was about age 5, with Shirley Temple curls and with 2 sets of identical twin boys, each pair dressed exactly alike, standing beside and behind me. My first cousins. One set 4 years older than I, and the other set only 16 months older. These identical twin cousins and I virtually grew up together. They were almost like my brothers, except that we lived on opposite sides of the town, and thereby were in different schools until junior high. All of our holidays were spent together. People said that I could tell them apart when the grown-ups could not. And I should also mention that my favorite teachers in high school happened to be a set of identical twin sisters, Velma Gillespie and Zelma Root. This background, I hope, will explain why I have chosen to talk about a subject that fascinates me and has fascinated people for centuries: multiple births, and especially twins. Yes, people have been fascinated by twins since ancient times. In Greek and Roman myth, Castor and Pollux, sons of Zeus and Zeta, protected sailors and fought multi-headed sea monsters together. When Castor died, Pollux begged his father to let him join his brother in the heavens. And that's where they are today, in the constellation Gemini, the Latin word for twins, which I had long forgotten. According to Roman legend, Romulus and Remus, twin sons of the war god Mars, were abandoned near the river as infants. When their baskets washed up on the riverbank, a female wolf discovered the hungry babies and nursed them back to health. The brothers went on to found the city of Rome in 753 BC, and their images can be seen today in the Capitoline Museum in Rome. The Mojave Indians believed twins controlled thunder, lightning, and rain. During droughts, the Mohawks poured water over the graves of twins to encourage the rain. Other twins from ancient stories include Apollo and Diana from Roman myth, Jacob and Esau from the Bible, and the Man in the Iron Mask from the 18th century story about a man who claimed to be the twin of Louis XIV of France. In current times, in Twinsburg, Ohio, each August, about 6,000 twins attend the International Twins Festival, the largest gathering of twins in the world. The families and friends, researchers and reporters and curious onlookers make the total crowd many times larger. The festival began in 1976 with 36 sets of twins and has grown almost every year since. The Twins restaurant in New York City was opened by identical twin sisters, Lisa and Debbie Katz. It's staffed entirely by sets of identical twins who work the same shift, in the same station, in the same uniform. If one has to miss work, the other has to miss as well. And you guessed it, drinks are two for the price of one. I never take the green girls anywhere, to the park, the grocery store, whatever, that someone doesn't step up to say, twins, aren't they? Often the next question is, do twins run in your family? It's a typical question because it is widely believed that twins do run in families. But I have to say no, because there is little, if any, evidence that producing identical twins is tied to the genes. Identical twins seem to occur randomly and might show up in any family in any time. Identical twins happen when a fertilized egg divides between the 1st and the 14th day of conception. These offspring share 100% of the same genes. Their eye color, hair color, blood type will be the same, and their fingerprints will have similar characteristics. They will, of course, be of the same sex. At this time, identical twins make up about 1/3 of all twin births. The other 2/3 of twin births are fraternal twins. About 1/2 are boy-girl twin pairs, 1/2 are both girls, or 1/4 are both girls, and 1/4 are both boys. Fraternal twins happen when more than one egg is fertilized, possibly at different times, and even by different fathers. In other words, the mother must release 2 eggs, and each egg must be fertilized by a different sperm. These twins are different genetically. Each child will share an average of 50% of the same genes with his or her twin, just as each twin will share about 50% of the same genes with any other brother or sister born to the same mother and father. Fraternal twins may be the same sex, or they may not. They may not even look alike. Even Shakespeare was not informed about the difference in fraternal and identical twins. He was himself the father of a fraternal pair, his daughter Judith and his son Hamnet. And he must have been fascinated with twins, certainly with their ability to play games of mistaken identity. He used 2 pairs of twins in the Comedy of Errors and 1 pair in the 12th Night. In 12th Night, he wrote a line to describe the male-female twins, Sebastian and Viola. He compared them to an apple that has been cut into 2 pieces. Here is the exact line from the play. An apple cleft in twain is not more twin than these 2 creatures. And Gene Ellis adds, Shakespeare's beautiful image describes identical twins. Evidently, he did not know that a male-female pair can only be fraternal. She was an English teacher, so she got her jab in William Shakespeare. From all that I have read, it appears that we know more about what causes fraternal than identical twins. For example, fraternal twins happen most often to women who have already borne some children and to women who are between the ages of 35 and 39. It is as if Mother Nature wants to make sure that the world gets populated and is making a final extra effort. Mothers of fraternal twins tend to be taller and heavier, on average, than mothers of identical twins with singletons. Other factors include country of origin. For instance, Asian women seldom produce fraternal twins, yet Nigerian women produce an unusually high percentage of fraternal twins. Much less is known about the causes of identical twins. It's a mystery. Scientists don't have an answer for some, and some believe that it may be just a marvelous birth defect. My husband Max, the grandfather, who is not a scientist, calls it spontaneous combustion. It just happens. In identicals, which happen 3 to 4 times in every 1,000 births, the most consistent among all the birth rates of multiples. A subgroup of identical twins is called mirror twins, or mirror image twins, as if one child is looking into a mirror and seeing a reverse reflection of him or herself. These children will have mirror image traits, such as the way the hair swirls in the crown of the head, one clockwise and the other counterclockwise. Birthmarks, dimples, and moles will probably be on opposite sides of the body. They will cross their arms and legs in reverse directions. One may be right-handed and the other may be left-handed. Mirror image like this occurs in about 1 out of 4 pairs of identical twins. Our older twin granddaughters happen to be mirror twins, and they will be glad to talk with you about this if you can catch them for a conversation, and you couldn't. Still speaking of twin types, we must consider another group, super twins. They are called a common term for triplets, quadruplets, and on to sextuplets and octuplets. These multiples may consist of fraternal and identical children in the same birth event. But the famous Dionquin triplets, born in Canada in 1934, were identical, with a single fertilized egg that split 4 times. The Canadian government took them from their parents and, as wards of the government, placed them in a specially built hospital under the care of the doctor who delivered them. There they were put on display and suffered from the publicity and the loss of privacy with their family until they were finally returned to their parents at age 9. In 1997, McCoffey, pronounced McCoy, septuplets were born in Iowa, 4 boys and 3 girls. The Dion sisters, that is the 3 who were still living, wrote a letter to the parents of the McCoy 7, and this is what their letter said. Multiple births should not be confused with entertainment, nor should they be an opportunity to sell products. We sincerely hope a lesson will be learned from examining how our lives were forever altered by our childhood experience. Then in 1998, after the McCoy septuplets, a Nigerian-born mother and a father from Texas became parents of the world's first octuplets to be born alive, the Louis Chukuka octuplets. However, the smallest child, who was born 2 weeks before her 7 siblings, did not survive. She died of heart and lung failure. If you're wondering who holds the world's record for multiple births, in 1991, the record was held by Leontina Albina from Chile, who had her 55th child in 1981. 55th child in 1981. Her 55 children included 5 sets of triplets. I haven't found information on any more recent number surpassing that account. Of course, the risk, especially the higher multiples, are considerable. Complications from pregnancy, low birth weight, premature delivery, health problems immediately, even lingering lifetime disabilities. Quote, the more babies a woman carries at once, the greater her risk of complications. But twins face the fewest medical complications and are usually born healthy. A friend asked me recently whether more mothers are having twins these days. She said that she seems to see more twins and no more twins than in the past. The answer is yes. I have already mentioned that the identical twin birth rate stays quite consistent worldwide. However, the rate of fraternal twins and the higher multiple births is going up in an astonishing way. The National Center for Health Statistics has reported that in the past 20 years, there's been a 74% increase in twins because of more fraternal twins, and a 423% increase in super twins, meaning triplets in higher multiples. An example close to home, Mary Alice and Hattie Sherman have 3 sets of twins and 1 set of triplets who have been with them in preschool and again this year in the 4th grade, and that's here in Austin, Texas. A photograph of their 2-year birthday party shows that 4 sets of twins were attended. Reasons given for these increases in multiple births: more women are having babies later in life, and older women are more likely to have multiples. But more significant are the new medical procedures, such as fertility stimulating drugs, in vitro fertilization, and other assisted reproductive techniques that produce a higher incidence of multiples. Also, I should mention that many more twins are conceived than are even born. Since the use of ultrasound is in prenatal care, it's been evident that a considerable number of pregnancies start with twins but end up with only 1 baby. When this happens, one dies early in the pregnancy, usually before the 12th week, and is absorbed into the placenta. This is known as the vanishing twin syndrome. Before ultrasound, most of these mothers never knew that they had conceived twins. Now, after talking about these twin types and the increasing number of multiple births, I want to go back to the common questions and misconceptions. When anyone asks me, do twins run in your family? I say no, because as far as anyone can say at this time, identical twins just happen. Here's another misconception about twins, that the trait of bearing multiples comes from the father. There's little evidence, if any, that the father's genes influence the chances of producing 2 or more children from the same birth. With fraternal twins, mom gets the credit when she produces more than 1 egg in a cycle. And with identical twins, the splitting of a single egg just happens. About a month ago, Good Morning America featured a couple from Houston, Texas, and there's surprising variation on this egg splitting theme. This woman had an in vitro fertilization procedure, and she had 2 eggs implanted. Then, as we've said, it can just happen. Both of those eggs split. So now she has 2 sets of identical twin boys, making a set of quadruplets. The news article called it, quote, a rare circumstance that happens only once in every 11 million births. Still another piece of folklore is that twins, quote, skip a generation. Perhaps, but not necessarily so. Again, mom's body is responsible for fraternal twinning, and her chances of having twins are increased, probably 5-fold, if she herself is a fraternal twin, or has already borne fraternal twins, or has twin relatives in her line of heredity. Her race also can make a difference. Asians, for instance, have the lowest rates of twinning, and Nigerians the highest rate. To sum up, Dr. Elizabeth Bryan, a pediatrician who's devoted her practice to the study of twins in London, has written, it seems that if you are longing to have twins, it is best to be a 6-foot Nigerian in your late 30s who has already had 5 children, including 1 set of identical fraternal twins. If the last thing you want is twins, it is best to be Japanese, 4 foot 11 inches, age 20, having your first pregnancy with no history of twins in your family. Now a few typical questions about twin behavior. People like to ask, which of the twins is more aggressive? Which is the most dominant one? What I don't appreciate is when that question is asked in front of the children. Well, there's no good way to answer these questions, so I usually answer with another question. Aggressive in what way? Dominant when? Talking or singing? In basketball or ballet or swimming or soccer? Computer games, poster design. Maybe one twin has been the first to greet, the first to say hello, the one to make more conversation. But I'm not surprised to see a reversal of roles the very next time, with the other one speaking up first and conversing with enthusiasm. As they get older, they will settle into predictable patterns, but I try not to characterize them now nor label them because I would see myself looking quite foolish pretty soon. Do twins have a secret language? Secret language among twins is common enough to have a couple of names, idioglossia and cryptoplasia. It's kind of hard to get those. One professional says that perhaps as many as 40% of twin pairs will have a special language at some time, and that it can range from a poorly articulated normal language to one that is quite different from their mother tongue. Probably a cause of twin secret language is that because they are together so constantly, they may learn most of their communication from each other. So when neither one has progressed very far with their parents' language, they may understand each other's language quite well and adopt it. Even so, this language doesn't last long, and it's not considered harmful as long as normal language develops alongside it and eventually takes over. Recently, I asked Mary Alice, one of our 10-year-old twins, that question. Do you and Hattie have a secret language? She said, no, not really, but lots of times we can read each other's minds. During this conversation, Hattie, lying on one end of the couch, was reading a book. Mary Alice, on the other end of the couch, proceeded to interrupt Hattie to pull her into the conversation to demonstrate their clairvoyance. Hattie, what am I thinking about now? Hattie joined in, and Mary Alice, who was the sole judge of success in this demonstration, deemed Hattie's answer to be the right one more than half the time. No doubt this common shared environment and hours together had much to do with their success in, quote, reading each other's mind. I imagine this episode as an example of what might be called their language of looks and inflections, perhaps something like bridge partners that have played together for years. One professional has suggested that identical twin pairs can be viewed as little cultures, namely miniature inbred populations with their own special understanding and ways of doing things. Another question, did they make the same choices? If different, their choices are not much different, rather some variation on the same theme. Hattie and Mary Alice, fourth graders, recently went with their separate classes to the school library, and they went at different times of the day. Hattie chose the first volume of a new set of books. Mary Alice chose the second volume of the same series. As they grow older and their experience broadens, we expect that they will know that they have more choices, and they will begin to show how individual they really are. Are they in the same classroom, or have the parents chosen to separate them? Clara and Hazy, age 3.5 and now age 21 as of the 1st of August, are still together in nursery school. Mary Alice and Hattie, age 10, have been in separate classes since age 5, but they still do the same after-school activities on the same schedule: basketball, ballet, piano, school, church events. They were even munchkins together in last fall's production of Wizard of Oz. Their parents' ideal is that being separated at school should help them not to become bored with each other or to be in constant competition with each other. Also, they can tell their own stories and information the way they want it told, such as their grade reports or their feelings about special moments at school. Except for the school day, Mary Alice and Hattie are almost all of the time together, but their experience is not unusual for twins. As Dr. Bryan has written, no child is likely to spend less time on his own than a twin. Few twins ever sleep alone, wake alone, and eat and drink alone, play alone, or meet with others alone. Whether as friend or rival or antagonist, the twin almost always has a companion to fill the silence, interrupt a thought, or excite an action. Fortunately, though, identical twins tend to work well together. Certainly they can get in a tangle now and then, but usually working together they can accomplish tasks with the speed and facility that two single children working together would not be able to achieve. Whether it is their identical genes, their nature, or their environment of constantly togetherness, their nurture, or the combination, identical twins tend to be more advanced in certain skills such as sharing and interactive play. In the course of preparing this paper, it occurred to me that I had never asked any of my twin cousins what it felt like to be a twin, had never even thought to do so. So I called my cousin Marvin. He pointed out that he is now 70 years old, but he has never given that question much thought. Being a twin is something that he has just taken for granted. But when I pressed him to let me know that I was really serious, he said that he could remember how as a child he did not feel that he had a name. He said until college, when my brother and I went different ways, we were called the Twins, or we were called Marvin and Garvin. Their rhyming names pronounced in one breath, Marvin and Garvin. I did not feel that I had an identity. Most people did not try to make a difference between us. I see that today with twins, he said, seems to be too much trouble for people to figure out which one is which. It's not surprising that Marvin told me that he and Garvin worked well together. At their after-school job in the grocery store, he said, they liked to work as a team. We were very efficient, he said, because Garvin checked fast and I sacked fast. He doesn't remember competition with his brother. Disagreements, of course, but not competition. Marvin remembers holding some resentment toward his mother, who insisted that they always dress alike, until finally and happily, one changed to a job that required different clothes. He finished his letter this way: I have a strong feeling that parents do an injustice if they do not allow their twins to be individuals as well as twins. Individuals as well as twins, each one unique. I can remember as we family members began to get acquainted with each of the Sherman babies, we talked about their differences. The appearance of one was so like the appearance of the other, and we couldn't help but look for differences in the way he slept, or took the bottle, or made her own sleeping sounds, or crying out. Like the slight difference in weight, we wondered where these differences came from. Much is unknown about the effects of twins' environment in the womb, although through ultrasound we're learning more. This is a quote. Some babies appear to relate harmoniously, touching and stroking each other, whereas others seem to be having a constant battle. Often one baby is much more active than the other. Preliminary studies have shown that the babies continue to show these patterns of behavior during infancy. Recently, I had an experience with the 3-year-old granddaughters, Clara and Hazy, and I hope I will never forget it. At my house one afternoon, they wanted to look at my albums of family photographs. I said, okay, thinking, this won't last long. And I brought out one album, then at their request, another, and then another. We spent 3 hours on the breakfast room couch, 3 hours with only one break for ice cream, looking at these books of family photos. And over came the question, where is me? Where is me? Where's me, Jeannie? Pretty soon in those 3 hours, they can identify grandparents, great-grandparents, cousins, sisters, godparents, godsisters, godmothers, and other friends. And there was always the most important concern, where is me? Where is me? I did my best to point out who was Hazy and who was Clara. And whenever either appeared on the photograph, their images looking so much alike, I often had to check the label on the back to identify, and they insisted that I do so. I hope I never forget that day, because it is a clear reminder of how these little ones come into the world as unique persons and develop so soon has an incredibly strong sense of identity and individual personality that deserves respect from everyone. That's it, remarks. Last Sunday after church, I met my son and two of the younger twins who just turned 21. One is will be a junior here at Macomb School at UT, and the other one will be a junior at Vanderbilt in Nashville, Tennessee. And you just see these stories coming up all as you live with them and work with them. They're very. One is the pledge captain in her sorority in her group. The other one is not very interested in the sorority activities, and she's interested in investing, and she wants to know, what are you investing in? What's it good? What's it up? Is it down? The other one could care less. One has a significant other for the last couple of years. The other changes significant others about every month. So it's a fascinating story. And I know there are a few people here who have twin stories, and I don't have a lot of answers, but for those who came in again, let me just point out the latest book. I mentioned it once before, but there's a new book out by the University of Minnesota, and it's called Born Together, Reared Apart. And it's probably going to tell us a lot more than Jean Ellis was able to discover when she put these remarks together. She does have a bibliography at the end because she borrowed from a lot of different sources. And there's a great book by Larry Wright, who lives here in Austin, on twins, which is one that would be worth checking out. It's called Twins and What They Tell Us About Who We Are. You know, Larry Wright's with the New Yorker, and but his is a very good, and she quoted a lot from Elizabeth Bryant. And there's one called The Magic and Mystery of Multiple Births, and another one is Having Twins. And in the beginning of the study in Minnesota, she has, which is Twins and What They Tell Us About Human Behavior, which is what I'm sure has ended up in this 2012 book. So thanks all of you coming. If any of you have a question or any part of it, I'd be glad to share it, but thank you very much, and I'm glad we're able to have some. Yes, Linda.
My husband Jim is a fraternal twin. His twin sister lives here in Austin.
I'm going to have someone repeat that one to me.
My husband Jim is a fraternal.
Oh yeah, Jimmy Prentice is a twin.
His twin sister lives here in Austin, and when people who are ignorant of what you've taught us tonight ask, "Oh, are you identical?" He likes to answer or brag, except for one thing. And so I'll let you think about what that one thing is bragging about.
There you have a personal story and a true one, yeah. And Jimmy's sister's a wonderful young woman. I think she now lives in San Antonio. Yeah.
The twin lives here in Austin.
Jerry.
My daughter has twin boys, and when they were infants or young, 3 or 4, I was trying to teach them to read or something, and realized one of them couldn't do it, that the other one could. And come to find out, of course, he was dyslexic. And most of the time, you don't find that out until the schools test you when you're in the 3rd grade. But they figured it out when he was, preschool.
Yeah.
So he was really ahead of the game when he started school.
Well, I think these are personal experiences, are ones where you really learn, and we didn't have a lot of help. We had to kind of take it as it came along. I think there are 1 or 2 twins who are here at Westminster. Tricia, you're a twin, aren't you?
Yes.
It's one I know of. And,
I'm an identical twin.
but it's a fascinating study and story. So, Roger, I see you in the back. I'm not trying to take a phone call. I actually wear hearing aids that I can make a little louder, so I'm going to be able to see if I can pick up a little talk here. Let me do.
Can you hear me?
No.
I'm going to be closer.
Can you be closer? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Has anyone studied the grief syndrome of twins? Particularly if they experience grief together
Vicky's gonna get a microphone and let you ask, because that's a question that everybody needs to hear. I mentioned it earlier, but there is a study that was done in New York City where they were forcibly separating twins and sending them out, and it got into a lot of legal troubles. And the records from that are now at Yale University, and they're not going to be available until 2065. But apparently they had a whole lot of multiple births, and they were forcibly separating them to do a study, and it turned out to be have a lot of legal issues. Okay, Roger.
Well, my question was about the grief syndrome of twins. Has anybody studied it? I think they have, actually. And we all who minister to dying people are very aware of the grief syndrome and its components.
Yeah.
And my question is around two kinds of situations. One is where the twins would lose someone together, like a parent. And the other would be if they lose one of the twins. Is there a special intuitive sense there that they feel with that twin? Or they can feel the closeness of that twin in the way that they feel the closeness of thought? In other words, is there some telepathic dimension to being a twin?
We got an expert to answer that one. That's a tough one. You know, when I think of that, Jean Alice mentioned the vanishing twin syndrome. You would really, that would be a part of it. If you lose a twin in that first 12 weeks, would you have some of those same emotions? Linda, would you do me a favor? If Roger brought that mic over to you, would you say what you did a while ago? Because I think maybe folks on this side of the room were not able to hear.
I don't think it bears repeating.
I believe it would.
I just said, my husband Jim is a fraternal twin. His twin sister lives here in Austin. And when people who are ignorant of what Max has taught us tonight about fraternal twins ask, "Oh, are you identical?" He likes to brag, except for one thing. And I said, "I'll let you think about the one thing he's bragging about."
Could we get someone who could take the mic over here to... Roger, you end up being the mic guy here. Thank you.
I'm not walking very well.
That's all right.
Over in the corner, we've got a lady with a comment or question.
All right. You must be used to this from all your political rallies. Who was it that had?
Right on the corner.
Thank you. Oh.
You can sit down and just talk.
Yes, okay.
You take your
I
mic.
happen to be the daughter of a twin, and we didn't see my daddy's brother very often, because it seems that when Daddy and Mother married, that twin disappeared, because he could not accept his twin having a wife, and certainly not a daughter.
Anyone else have it? It's a fun thing to hear some stories, and if nothing else, it's just good to get to see people face to face. So thank you all for being here, and
Here comes Ruth Lehman.
hi Ruth.
From the time I started school till, well, practically the time I was married, my mother dressed my sister and me, who was 19 months younger and developed faster, and we looked exactly alike. She dressed us as twins. Now, it was fine for me, but it was really a problem all her life for my sister because they expected her, 19 months younger, to be as mature acting as I was. And it was just because she liked the idea of people coming up and saying, "Oh, are they twins?" So it's a real psychological problem.
Marty? Roger, Marty has an observation.
Yes, okay. From India.
Yes, I have a strange experience with twins. And my oldest sister has twins, and they are both alive still. In fact, they are right here. When the twins were born, of course, the midwife came to the house and to deliver the children. And I guess my mother was there, and I was a teenager, and I was sitting in the room next to where the delivery was happening. And the first boy was born. And after the boy was born, the midwife came running out of the room, and she said, "Go to the doctor, bring him over here, there's another baby inside." And I was a teenager, so of course I got on my bike and rode to the doctor and brought him over. After an hour, the second baby was born. And it was quite an experience, and I don't know all the life experience of theirs, especially since I was here for most of the time. And but they are together, and they have somehow followed each other in coming to the United States and had a company together. And so that's my experience.
Thank you, you bet. I will tell one last one of those and let you all scatter because we're almost at the end of the hour. But when it was learned that we had these identicals, I was still flying a lot, and there was a stewardess on one of the planes where would ask about my wife or my family, and I told her the twins, and she told about having her first child, and the way the babies, apparently, I'm not a doctor, but apparently they were stacked, and so they did not know there were two babies there, and they had one delivered, and then almost forgot to, thought they were through, and all of a sudden the second one started moving out, and they had to deal with it. So once you start the stories going, there's no end to where they take you. But thank you all for being here very much.
What's Jean Alice doing?
She's doing very well. We're having they just had another test positive, so we've got 2 more weeks when we can't go down. We had 2, and now we have 2 more coming. This drives me nuts.
She hasn't had it.
No. But thank you very much for asking about it. Thanks, John.
Sorry, can't come in
Thank you for
now.
being here.
The drugs, I'll try to get me back in soon as I say. Got to go on a trip soon, 2.5 weeks.